5:46 Greatest Hits Radio. The latest Confessions podcast landed on Friday. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcast. It's a very, very good thing. Everybody says it's probably their favourite podcast that revolves around people confessing to things.
Yeah, it is. Wow. It's certainly mine, yeah.
I think that's basically what it boils down to. Anyway, it's time to grab something from the trolley. Before we go any further, just as a little sharpener, what have you got for us today, Suze?
A very nice IPA from Electric Bear. It's called Lucy in the Sky with Goosey. Tropical, bright, very tasty, 5.5%, and Sabro and Nelson Sauvin hops.
Do you just make up the hops and just put some words together?
No, the actual names.
Are they? How many different types of hops are there? It seems like millions.
Dozens of them.
Dozens, okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll bear with that in mind.
Nice and specific.
Today's confession, which is called Who Put Fireworks in the Coal? Who Put a Real Life Toad in the Hole? If you remember your 60s comedy, it's a very funny title.
It is a very funny title.
Tim sends in today's confession. Here we go. Tim says, Dear Father Simon and the Fraternity of Forgiveness, the events I'm about to confess to all took place over 50 years ago.
Oh.
Wow.
Please bear that in mind. I was born in 1965 and according to my parents was a difficult baby. This meant they thought long and hard about adding to the family, but in the end, hope triumphed over experience. And in January 1970, my brother was born. Cue the Terry Scott song, which is what I was quoting earlier.
Of course, yeah.
The age gap was around 4.5 years, and it's fair to say it was a gap I exploited with a targeted reign of terror over the next few years.
Yes.
A lot will depend on whether you have a younger brother, an older brother, younger sister, elder sister, and so on. The first incident I'm going to tell you about is when my brother was a small baby. My mum used to bathe him in the sink. I had the great idea of taking a Cadbury's chocolate button from a nearby drawer, putting it in the sink and telling Mum that my brother had a small accident whilst being bathed. She believed me, and following this success, I was on my way.
Oh, dear.
I mean, suspiciously
That's very
circular.
good,
Yeah.
When I was a waste of chocolate as well.
Yeah.
When I was 8, Ian, my friend from across the road, was going to school for a fancy dress competition as a ghost. His mum had taken a white sheet and made a couple of eye holes in it and sewed a blue rim around them. It was fairly rudimentary stuff that wouldn't have even got into Scooby-Doo, but my brother was only 3. And one dark evening, I told him to look out of the window and he'd see a ghost in the street. My friend duly obliged, with some ghostly noises scaring my brother to death, not literally, obviously. As a result, from that time on, he was always frightened to go to bed on his own and wouldn't go to sleep with the light off. This carried on for a few years. When my brother was 7, I hatched a dastardly plan. I hid under his bed one night, and a few minutes after he got into bed, I started pushing up the mattress very gently. This frightened him again, and he ran downstairs crying. I was caught red-handed, and needless to say, my mum was furious with me. Now, the second broad category I'd like to take into consideration
There's more.
is fighting and violence, which is often, Tim, I have to say the same thing.
Yeah.
I recall us having a fight once and giving him a nosebleed, but the worst act was what's become known as the Rothmans Football Annual Incident. In the mid-1970s, my parents thought that buying me, a football nerd in the making, a book sponsored by a tobacco company, they thought it was okay. Different time.
Wow.
The Rothmans Football Annual was a big deal. For the uninitiated, it was 750 pages of A5 paper. It's a fascinating reference manual for all things football related. All the stats you could ever need, results and appearances, goal scorers, transfers. We had the England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, non-league football, European matches, assorted international.
It was all there.
Everything was there. With this veritable treasure trove in your hands, you had all the information you could ever need if you wanted to check some facts and win any argument. It also had other uses, however, as it was a hefty tome.
Yeah.
And after one of our fights, I decided to drop the book on my brother's face.
Face?
He shouted in no particular order, "Ouch, Yaru, you swine, ouch again. My nose is broken, it wasn't, what a baby. And I'm telling Dad." This was all understandable, but thankfully caused no damage. My brother has quite a large nose, which took the brunt of the blow.
Oh my
So in a way,
goodness.
it's his fault.
And, protected his face, as I believe this is what the nose was designed for in the first place.
Yeah.
Now I've written all this down, I realise my chances of forgiveness from Sister Susie are less than zero.
Correct.
And I'm hoping that Brother Matt will be able to attribute all of this to the system. I don't think so. Different times or the circle of life, if not a combination of all three.
Why not?
In my defence, when I shared some of these stories with my brother a few years ago, he had no memory of any of them. That's because he was hit on the head by the Rothmans football annual. He's now 56 and we get on very well, and I believe that he's happy to go to sleep without the light on. I do still need forgiveness, though, from my brother and my late parents, who had to deal with the consequences of my very poor behaviour, ending up with an upset and slightly nervous child. Thanks to you and the team for a great programme, which is a refuge in these slightly strange times in which we live in. I think that's right. I think we are one of the things that help people get through on a daily basis.
That's so true.
Indeed.
But anyway, to the matter in hand, Tim sounds like a problematic child. Sister Susie.
Oh, Tim. When he said, he had the book and he was going to drop it, I thought maybe his foot or, his face.
Dropped on his face.
He dropped the football annual on his face. I just can't. He could have broken his nose. Maybe if it was big, it was even more likely to be broken. I don't know. But I'm a younger sister, and I think you sound like a rotter to your younger brother. And for that reason, I'm not going to forgive you, Tim.
A rotter and a scoundrel, Brother Matthew.
Well, I'm going to forgive. The chocolate button one alone. Come on. That's very good. I wish I'd thought of that. Dropping the... we all Rothmans, we remember them, don't we?
Do you have a younger brother?
Yes, I do. Yes, I never dropped a Rothmans on his nose, though, which is a pity. But, they were great, weren't they? Rothmans, what memories.
You mean the football annual?
The football annual as
Yes.
opposed to the cigarettes.
Yes.
I'm sure people like those as well. So I'm going to forgive, because it was talked about life, didn't it? It learns a lot about life.
I don't
and
think so,
smoking isn't as good. But all of those things combined make me believe that he is going to be forgiven.
61054. First word is Simon. Just before the news, we got a confession from Tim about a chocolate button in the sink, a ghost in the street, and a Rothmans football annual on his brother's head. Face, specifically. And the people's verdict is in. Here we go.
Not forgiven, says Gabrielle. As a younger sibling, I cannot forgive Tim, who drops a heavy book on someone's face. Mean and not cool. But Michael in Liverpool says forgiven. Younger siblings are so annoying. You have to do something to put them back in their place. And his nose wasn't broken in the end, so no harm done, really. And Brian says not forgiven. As a younger sibling, I'm with Sister Susie. Rotter is the biggest understatement. It sounds like he wasn't even sorry. I feel sorry for his brother and for any siblings unfortunate enough to have grown up with Matt, for that matter.
Oh, I see.
They might agree with you on that one.
A controversial opinion at the end. Okay. Tim, thank you very much indeed for your confession. Thank you for all the verdicts. If you have a confession, we would like to see it. If we use it, you get a smart speaker. Send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. But before we get there, we have some important business. Sister Holly is back in the judging business today.
I am indeed.
Sick and Wrong, obviously, will turn up at some stage. Today's confession comes from John. PG 12, possibly, for detail, injury, and horribleness. Father Simon and the rest of the congregation, I write to share my story surrounding my neglectful actions as a parent to my daughter, Rebecca. The year is 1999. Rebecca is a 10-month-old baby. She was loved to bits by me and her mum, Elizabeth. You may recall that 1999 was also the year Manchester United were chasing down their historic treble.
That is true, yes.
Being a Liverpool Red, this really grated with me, since it was Manchester United who defeated Liverpool in the 1977 FA Cup final. The week after, Liverpool were crowned league champions.
Yes.
And a few days before, they would go on to lift the European Cup, therefore denying Liverpool the historic treble
yes.
many years earlier.
Yeah.
You following this?
Yeah.
Glad you're a part of this one.
Yep.
Surely United wouldn't win it, would they? As a young family, Sky Sports was not an option in those days, given our financial commitments. So I was left to follow up, catch all the football results via the old faithful of CFAX.
Of course, CFAX.
Do you remember CFAX?
No, I don't. No.
It was a thing on television where you could switched to some kind of text service which gave you the news.
Oh, interesting.
And sport.
Okay.
Wasn't it great?
No.
It
Loved
was.
it. Yes.
I loved it.
3:02 for the football.
That's
Anyway,
right.
Yeah.
On this particular evening, I was being the good dad and spending quality time with my beautiful daughter. Whilst getting her ready for bed, I thought it wouldn't do any harm to check the football results. So on went the portable TV in my bedroom, and I lay there with Rebecca lying safely next to me in the centre of the king-size mattress. She was quite happy and having a gurgle and a snooze. It was the night of Manchester United's FA Cup semi-final replay against Arsenal.
Oh, yes.
United were ahead, but midway through the second half, Arsenal equalised. And then shortly afterwards, Roy Keane was sent off. Surely this was the end of the treble. What do you think? Do you think it's the end of the treble?
Oh, I don't know.
No.
Yeah.
Injury time came and 10-man United conceded a penalty. Yes! I screamed, constantly refreshing the CFAX page. 302, 302. Waiting for the good news to filter through. Schmeichel saved the penalty. No! I screamed. Not to worry. 10 versus 11 going into extra time. And then we all know about the Ryan Giggs solo effort in the 119th minute and his hairy-chested celebration.
Yes.
Remember that, Holly?
Yeah. Very, very well. I was there.
Got a poster of it. Whilst being fixated on the CFAX football content, I suddenly heard a loud thud. I swiftly turned my gaze from the screen to see Rebecca on the floor at the side of the bed.
Oh, dear.
I jumped into action, picked her up and checked her head for a bump or a bruise. Although crying, she seemed okay without any obvious injuries. So I consoled her, told her the football results, and carried on. Obviously, she was upset about that. And carried on with my dad duties and got her into bed. She didn't settle that night, which was unusual for Rebecca because she had always been such a sound sleeper. Must be teething, I thought. Get the wonder drug, Calpol, that's what we need. All through the night, we had regular tears and she took lots of consoling from me and Elizabeth. As dawn broke, she was still very unsettled, so the best thing to do was to get her up, start our day early and give her lots of cuddles. It was then we noticed that she was holding her arm quite awkwardly and in fact was very reluctant to pick anything up with it. Something wasn't right, particularly because she was clearly in pain whenever we tried to take a closer look. So the responsible thing to do was to take her to the hospital for a checkup. After getting whisked through A&E for an X-ray, it turned out she hadn't bumped her head, but had broken her wrist.
Oh, no.
I, Father Simon, as you can imagine, was ravaged with guilt. Not just about letting her fall whilst in my care, but more so for the night of pain and discomfort she no doubt suffered, and all because I was transfixed with CFAX. In a way, it was their fault. Although Rebecca has no memory of the incident, which is a good thing.
Good.
I have told her about this incident and she holds no animosity towards me. In fact, she finds the story quite amusing. Quite amusing. So I think I can take that as forgiveness from Rebecca, can you? But I now seek forgiveness from you, Father Simon, and the wider congregation. But with Sister Holly in charge here, I don't think there's going to be any doubt that there's nothing coming your way, sunshine. Anyway, but I don't want to put words into your mouth. Holly, what do you say to John?
Well, this was in 1999 and she was a 10-month-old. And you know who else was a 10-month-old in 1999? Me!
Oh, really?
And so
Wow.
I really understand, I relate to Rebecca, really, I suppose, in all of this. It was really quite bad. He was spending too much time watching the football, which isn't very good. He kept saying about how he was a good dad, spending time with his daughter. Isn't that your job? Isn't that what you're supposed to do if you're a dad? How does that make you a good dad, spending time? You obviously weren't very good. She fell off the bed. She broke her wrist. You took a whole morning, whatever, to get her to the doctors. Not very good. I'm not forgiving this. It's sick and wrong.
Sick and wrong. Inevitably, that's where we were heading. I want that on a T-shirt.
Indeed.
Matt, what do you say to John?
Well, I'm going to forgive. He was watching.
He's a Liverpool fan?
Well, could be. He was watching the football on the CFAX. What a great time that was when we all watched football on CFAX. Desperately refreshing. 3:02. Come back. Don't turn over yet. And she was obviously upset by the Ryan Giggs winner. Maybe it was Ryan Giggs' fault. Let's say that. Let's say maybe Ryan Giggs needs to think, well, if he hadn't scored that goal, maybe the little Rebecca wouldn't have
had her wrist.
She wouldn't have
True.
fallen off the bed, would she? So for all of those reasons, I'm going to forgive.
Okay, all right. Well, I knew you were going to do something like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, and I knew Holly was going to be very strict. So it's the people's verdict, please, for John. Does he get your forgiveness? On the text, please, 61054, first word is Simon. And just before the news, we had a confession, a shocking confession from John, looking after his daughter, 10 months old. She fell off the bed because he was watching CFAX and football. The people's verdict is in. Here we go.
Definitely not forgiven, says Wendy. He had one thing to do, and that was to look after his daughter and keep her safe, angry face. But Eddie in Edinburgh says forgiven. Having spent time lying on the sofa many years ago, watching football and not noticing our firstborn had managed to scale the dining room table in the adjoining room, I have to forgive. As Matt would say, it was all good in the end. But Steve in Lincoln says not forgiven, as he could have listened on the radio instead.
I suppose that's true, but would he have been concentrating on his daughter?
Well, he'd been able to look at his daughter, wouldn't he?
I suppose that would have worked. Thank you very much indeed for the verdicts. Thank you for the confessions. Send them to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk to check out everything. Oh, drinks trolley time. What have you got for us, Sue, today?
A alcohol-free hoppy pale ale called New Horizons,
Yes.
Azaka, Citra, Econaut and Mosaic hops.
Oh, there again.
I like a bit of Mosaic.
You do, don't you?
I'm not too
Delicious.
keen on Econaut. Not quite sure where that's come from. But
Something like
is that
that,
right?
yes.
Oh, is that okay? Very good. Make me feel better. Maybe. Today's confession then comes from Mike. Thank you, Mike. Here we go. Father Simon and team, I've been carrying a great guilt, spelt wrong, and remorse for many years now. And I think the time is now right to seek forgiveness. Let me take you back to the late 70s, to a school on the outskirts of Barnsley, which had only recently expanded to include a sixth form, as it was called in those days. It was a time when school days ran from 9 till 4. None of this home by 2:30 to play on the game station for us. And a time when 3 A-levels was considered adequate, which obviously was a time before an A-level in general studies became such a useful achievement to boast about.
Wow.
As such,
Not bitter. Okay.
lessons for 3 A-levels amounted to the equivalent of 3 days spread throughout the week, and a half-day equivalent for sport. And then you were left with more than a day to do some quiet studying or background reading in the library. Contrary to popular belief, Barnsley was and still is, in fact, surrounded by some very, very pleasant countryside. And this particular school, on the outskirts of the borough, was only about 2 miles as the crow flies from a small country estate. The house had long been converted into a museum, and the parkland was enjoyed by families picnicking at the weekends, where children would paddle in the shallows with their fishing nets, looking for minnows and sticklebacks. Families would sit on picnic blankets and eat their sandwiches and cakes. Too much detail at this point.
It's idyllic, though,
and
isn't it?
drink fruit juices. It was idyllic. It's
Yes.
exactly what it says.
Oh, right.
here.
Okay.
So it was on a fine day such as this, and the sun was shining and the birds were singing, a temperature in the 70s, as we described the temperature back in those far-gone days. And come 12 o'clock, off let's call my mates Tom, Dick and Harry to protect their names, and we had a plan. We didn't have a lesson for the first double period. We had free study time, but we did need to be back for maths by mid-afternoon, so the last double period. So across the fields we went and soon found ourselves sitting by the river. It was suggested by Tom, I think, that we should go skinny dipping. Strip off and go for a swim. Now, your listener may now be thinking, I know where this is going. They're going to all get caught naked. But, Father Simon, in those days, 17-year-old boys didn't do that fully naked in public thing, just simply too embarrassing. But without swimming trunks, we were down to our underwear. And anyway, in case we were spotted, we'd be able to tell the difference between swimming trunks and underpants. So everything was fine, and a great time was had by all. We splashed and swam, and we looked decent.
Oh, it's all
Because
fine.
we looked decent in those days.
There we go.
We came back for our maths lesson, and it was to take the form of a one-to-one with the teacher, Mr. Heath, affectionately referred to as Ted behind his back. It's a political reference of the
very
early
good.
70s.
I like it.
We had been doing past A-level exam questions, and he was addressing individual errors and concerns, a useful exercise by a dedicated teacher taking on his new role, teaching A-level. I can't remember how many there were in the class, perhaps a dozen or so, but one by one, we went to sit with Ted at his desk at the front, and he gave every pupil his undivided attention. Tom, Dick, Harry and I were the last to go. Up went Tom, and after his session, he takes a casual look at the seat where he'd been sitting. When Dick approaches, he too looks at the seat and then proceeds to sit peculiarly perched on the front of the seat, and so does Harry. When I arrive, I see the reason why. There is a significant damp area on the seat, and by the time I leave, it's a total puddle. You see, Father Simon, in those days, boys wore proper underpants, good old-fashioned heavy cotton Y-fronts. None of your Lycra, Kevin Klein, rib boxer briefs, antibacterial bamboo support. No,
Goodness
none
me.
of that. When these pants got wet, they stayed wet forever.
Okay.
You knew where you were.
You didn't you?
With old-fashioned underpants.
Yes.
The moulded plastic chairs of the day, and which are still probably used today, had a natural hollow bowl rising slightly towards the front. With a boy sitting and moving occasionally with discomfort on the front of the chair, the resulting action was like that of a mangle, whereby water from the wet underpants was squeezed out, just like linen between two rollers. Nice to have a mangle.
Yes.
Wow.
Mentioned on a confession. As last to go, I then had a dilemma as to what to do with the chair when my session was over. So being responsible, I removed it carefully from alongside Ted's desk, being careful not to spill any of the water, and I placed it back beneath another desk where timid Timothy would sit. My request for forgiveness is to the cleaners. For you see, Mr. Heath, as head of the maths department, already had a reputation for being strict and frightening to some of the younger pupils in the school, and a cleaner finding this seat with a straw-coloured puddle, in fact, awash with water, would have perhaps come to the incorrect conclusion that Timmy had failed to, how shall I say this, maintain full bladder control in a time of stress.
Got it, yeah.
I'm sure the cleaner would have dealt with that accordingly, but it would have been a long-lasting concern for the well-being of that small child, simply anguish that a cleaner should not have to endure. And so for that reason, I seek forgiveness. Yours, hopefully, from Mike. I don't know why he went all pompous.
He
at
did
the
a
end,
bit,
but
didn't
anyway,
he?
he's got a lot of problems with Fahrenheit, underpants, and class sizes, and A levels, and all kinds of things. Anyway, Suze, what do you say?
Well, Mike, I just feel like there was a bit too much detail about men's underpants for my liking, really, and I don't like. I'm just not going to forgive him.
Heavy cotton, that's right. When they were wet, they stayed wet forever. Brother Matthew.
Yes, I'm going to forgive Mike. Very happy in the 70s. Well, I've got to say I'm with him on the pants. I've never heard of bamboo pants. What will our Chinese cousins think of next? I don't know. So I'm going to forgive, because it seems to me like the original sin here was him only having one class in the afternoon very late. Who's sorting out the rota there? That's not working. So for that reason, because of the rota,
Yes.
This sounds familiar. I'm going to forgive.
People's verdict, please. 61054, first word is Simon. Before we go any further, just before the news, we had a confession from Mike, which featured a sixth form in the 1970s, all his mates swinging in old-fashioned pants.
No.
That would be a different confession.
Yes.
Swimming in old-fashioned pants, and then a classroom awash with lake water. The people's verdict is in. What did we say?
Forgiven, says Harry, and sorry. They were only young lads, and they were just having a laugh in the river. No harm done. But Julian Lowestoft says, I'm sorry, I definitely can't forgive. That confession has brought back terrible memories from last year's holiday, when I was out for cocktails and I sat in a chair that was very wet and smelled. I had to go back to the hotel and shower, and I threw my dress in the bin. For that reason, I can't forgive.
Fair.
But Kevin says, I forgive, but I don't agree with his stance on underwear. I am thrilled that boxers have got thinner through the years. Those big cotton ones were so heavy and unbreathable.
I think he's got a point. It's like looking at old football kit from the 1970s.
Oh, is it really?
And that's all heavy, and really it's going to irritate your skin.
Yes.
And what you want is bamboo.
Bamboo and lycra, apparently.
That's exactly what you want.
Isn't that wonderful?
If you have a confession, please send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Fortunately, that's where the drinks trolley comes in, because we have a little sharpener to help us on our way. What are we going with today, Suze?
I've gone for a very nice Goes Pils, which is a German wheat beer. A Goes, Gose. It's The Sum of Us by Lost and Grounded. It was made for International Women's Day, and 10p goes to every can goes to charity.
All right, very good. Well, we'll have a swift half before we proceed here. Richard has sent in this confession. He gets the smart speaker. Does he get your forgiveness? We'll find out. Simon, Brother Matt, Sister Susie, Sister Holly, I write today seeking forgiveness for an incident that occurred in Sutton Safeway in 1998. That's the Safeway in Sutton.
Okay.
A dark day for fruit aisles everywhere. Picture it, a young, exhausted parent, me, on a mission for groceries with three tiny humans, aged 4, 2, and barely existing.
Wow.
Okay.
Sleep-deprived, dazed, and probably smelling faintly of baby wipes, I pushed my trolley through the sacred aisles of Safeway like a zombie with a loyalty card. Everything was calm, ordinary. Bananas were behaving, bread was stable, hope was high, and then I reached the checkout. Here's an intriguing bit of a diversion. My neatly organized groceries were being scanned. Yes, I alphabetized my food. Don't judge.
Alphabetize the food.
What, on the conveyor belt?
So the A's go first and then the B's.
But what happens if your A is at the bottom of your trolley?
Well, that's a problem if you alphabetize your food.
I have literally never heard of that.
No, Richard, this is very strange behaviour. Anyway, we
I
continue.
do like an organised conveyor belt.
My neatly organised groceries were being scanned when tragedy struck. Across the aisle, Ethel, a perfectly lovely elderly lady, name changed to protect her from trauma, was shuffling past. Then, suddenly, like a stunt double in Die Hard, The Grapes of Wrath, her legs were above her head and she landed dramatically on the tarred floor. Crash and bang and essentially wallop.
Oh, no.
From nowhere, staff appeared like a team of Olympic sprinters. I've never seen help arrive so fast in Safeway. Clearly, the threat of a lawsuit is stronger than any loyalty card discount.
Yes, yeah.
They rushed to help poor Ethel, gathering her shopping and what was left of her dignity. Chairs were found and she had to lie down by the fish fingers. Then the manager... I mean, if you're going to lie down, you got to go over there. Then the manager, fully channeling Hercule Poirot, leant down and announced solemnly, it appears you slipped on this grape.
Oh, French, halfway through there. Yeah.
What is Hercule Poirot?
No,
You
I
slipped
get
on
that now.
This grape.
Yeah.
And my soul quietly left my body, because at that very moment, my cashier, bless her enthusiastic heart, had hit a snag. My grapes wouldn't scan. So she shouted with the volume of someone calling for help across the ocean, "Sarah, how much are loose grapes?" To which Sarah replied equally loudly and unhelpfully, "What?"
Right.
And then again, louder, crisper, echoing through the entire store like a public confession, "The loose grapes, Sarah, how much are the loose grapes?" You see, it was my loose grapes that had caused Ethel to fall and crash to the ground. Heads turned, silent judgments were made. The tutting began. You'd think he could control his grapes, wouldn't you, man of his age? Put them in a bag next time. What's wrong with a bag of grapes? What kind of a father throws his grapes around? That kind of thing.
Right.
I did what any exhausted young parent would do in my position. I looked down, avoided all eye contact, paid for my sins and everything else, and left the scene of the crime before Safeway security could read me my rights. There were hungry children at home. I thought they were okay. More.
Were they with him? Oh, well, anyway.
They got even more children at home.
Wow,
I
more.
couldn't face the Spanish Inquisition over produce. So today, nearly 3 decades later, I ask humbly for forgiveness from Ethel, her hip, and every Safeway staff member who still bears emotional scars from the grape incident of 98. Yours in eternal shame and mild amusement, Richard. Okay, well, I think the most... astonishing behaviour. Losing control of your grapes, man of your age, not a good thing. But also alphabetizing your...
I like that.
got all his food in the trolley.
Yeah.
Well, he's got 3 kids with him. He's tired and emotionally exhausted, and he's still organising his food.
I don't think his kids are with him. I think he's left the kids at home. No one's taken a 4-year-old or 2-year-old and a barely existing to the supermarket.
Well,
There'd be definitely more grapes on the floor if that was the case.
Do you think? Anyway, okay, very good. Well, maybe all the kids are at home. Susie, what do you say?
I do feel for Richard here. I've been there. I've been that person who has had no sleep and is trying to get on with normal tasks, and you feel like you can't do them. But I don't understand why he didn't put his grapes in a bag. And maybe it was because they were at the bottom of the trolley and he had lots of later alphabet ones at the top that caused the loose grape to fall in front of Ethel. Poor Ethel. I am not going to forgive.
Neatly organised groceries. I've never heard of such a thing. Anyway, Matthew.
I like it. I mean, can I be the only one who's thinking that maybe Ethel needs to look where she's going? I mean, nobody wants anyone to slip over, but next time, Ethel, maybe look at the floor when you're shuffling past. Also, you put the grapes after the fish fingers, of course. Because in the alphabet, grapes comes after fish fingers. And before artichokes. Sorry, ham. There you go. Well done. So for all those reasons, I'm going to forgive.
Okay, very good. Well, strangely argued as ever.
Made sense.
But does Richard at the supermarket at Safeways in Sutton get your forgiveness? 61054. First word is Simon. Okay, so we had a confession just before the news from Richard, which involved him losing control of his grapes and poor old Ethel falling flat on her face, or on her back, I think, and having to lie down by the fish fingers. Anyway, the people's verdict is in. What did we get?
Hannah says, forgiven. It was an accident. Ethel should have looked where she was going. Barry in Chester, not forgiven. Neatly organised groceries by the alphabet. Who does that? We have to blame the system. I mean, it does sound like fun, doesn't it?
Yes.
And Jeanette in Sedgley says, forgiven. She got knocked down, but she got up again.
There's a song in there somewhere. Thank you for the verdicts and thank you for the confessions. If you have one, send it, please, to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk.